Hi Biophores, and welcome to part 6 of neurons. So this is a slide that we had ended on. We're thinking now, after an action potential has occurred, how is it going to cross over to the next cell? So the first cell we're going to call presynaptic cell. The one that comes after it is the post-synaptic cell, and the space in between is called the synapse. Okay, so that little tiny space drawn here as if it were pretty big, but it's not really, is this region where now not only electrical activity is the one that's transmitted, but it's chemical. So we're going to have chemical activity coming into this synapse, stimulating the next cell to now depolarize. Okay, so if we looked at it in steps, we would have a vesicle full of neurotransmitter that's waiting in that cell. And it's just sitting there, and it's going to wait until an action potential hits it before it does what? It goes to number 3 here, where it's secreted into that synaptic space or synaptic cleft. Okay, so action potential comes. This is going to fuse, right? This vesicle is going to fuse with a membrane and dump out its contents. So then that neurotransmitter goes where? It's going to bind to a receptor that needs to be sitting on cell number 2, on the postsynaptic cell. So once that is able to then attach onto that ion channel, then what happens? From then on, it's the same old story. A sodium channel is going to open, sodium's going to come into the cell, and guess what? It's going to depolarize. So from then on, it's going to be just like we described it before, now in the postsynaptic cell, okay, with sodium coming in and then potassium coming out. So that's what's going to happen on cell number 2 here. I'm not going to say a whole lot more about that. That's something that you study more in physiology, so we're going to leave it at that here in anatomy. I wanted to give you, however, some examples of neurotransmitters because I'm just bunching them all together as if they were all the same. So here are some examples of those. Dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. And what happens when you have too much dopamine? Well, an above average amount of dopamine is associated with schizophrenia. So you need to have exactly the right amount, because if you have too little dopamine, then the symptoms are of Parkinson's disease. And this has all sorts of motor dysfunctions that come from the lack of this one particular neurotransmitter. What else? Well, serotonin is another one. And serotonin is, if you were low in these amounts of serotonin, it's associated with depression. So it's this sort of feel-good hormone. The lack of it makes you feel depressed. So it's very important in things like mood, appetite, whether you sleep well or not, memory, learning. Oh my gosh, you guys, that means it affects everything, right? It affects everything. So it's the basis for some medications, some pharmaceuticals that are going to allow you to have more of that serotonin in the system so that you come out of that more depressed state. So these are often called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. What's that mean? So I'm going to go back a slide. Once this neurotransmitter has done its job, then it's sort of broken down and recycled. But if you could actually maintain it and keep more of it there in that synaptic cleft, then you would have that feel-good mood continuing on to the other cells. So you'd want to sort of save it there if you could. So some of these antidepressants, what they do is that they stop the recycling of it or the reuptake of it. So it's a reuptake inhibitor, and more of that neurotransmitter stays in the cleft and sends those feel-good messages. Okay, hope that's clear. This just sounded so funny to me in research with serotonin that I had to show it to you, and I'm just going to read it. It's in quotes, and it says, "The role of serotonin in animals with a more complex nerve system is in perceptions of more complex life situations, such as, for example, social rank." Okay, so if a lobster, obviously research was done with a lobster, if a lobster is injected with serotonin, it behaves like a dominant male. So it gets all pushy and dominant once it has these higher levels of serotonin. Very interesting, huh? Very interesting. And that was the last slide, you guys, of this chapter. So you've completed watching all the videos. Congratulations. Thanks again for watching. Bye.